In a recent poll on this channel that we did, 48%, that's nearly half of respondents, indicated they would prefer to buy a car that was new in the 2000s, and 33% would prefer to buy a car from the 1990s. The general consensus then is that older cars are better than newer cars. They're cheaper to buy, they're easier to work on. Part availability is generally pretty good for these older cars, and on newer cars it's often a 3 or 4 week waiting time to get specialist parts shipped out before you can even get a mechanic to fit this to your vehicle. Gone are the days where you used to take your car into the garage with a problem in the morning and it'd be ready for you to pick up in the evening. Very often now people come in with a problem in the morning and it's 3 or 4 days at least before you can actually get the part and get the part delivered and get a repair actually underway. The thing is though, if we're realistic, older cars are not necessarily as reliable as newer cars. There's more potential things that go wrong just because they're older. In this video then, we're going to look at things that we can do to improve the reliability of these older engines and also to improve the performance, to bring them up to modern standards. Most old cars from the 1990s and the 2000s are not as economical as modern cars. But the big advantage is they don't have all this eco junk fitted to them that is going to lead to ridiculously expensive repairs when they inevitably start to clog up and fail. When we've got a car that's 20 or 30 years old, we need to start thinking about the things that degrade over time. And that's typically anything made of rubber. The bushings, for example, will usually be completely shot when you get an older car if they've not been replaced already. And in many cases, they will probably be on their second or third replacement. And also all of the hoses in the engine bay, all of the pipes, they will start to degrade and split. And a lot of breakdown problems, overheating issues are related to those components. Getting yourself a decent kit of new hoses and new bushings will go a long way to restoring the reliability of an older engine. It'll also give you an opportunity to just check out the general condition of the engine. As you start taking pipes off, you can see how much sludge is inside them, and that's an indicator of the amount of sludge and gunk that is starting to build up inside the engine. When the bushings get worn, the suspension will start to make clunking and creaking noises. It will affect the handling. It won't be anywhere near as sharp as it was when it first came out of the factory. And while we're talking about getting the suspension sorted, it's probably worth upgrading the suspension. Suspension technology has come a long way in the last 10 to 15 years. There are a lot more options and suspension kits are much better developed now than maybe something the manufacturer was fitting 20 or 30 odd years ago. Older engines also degrade in their efficiency. Cleaning the mass airflow sensor, cleaning out the positive crankcase ventilation system, and just putting fresh leads to the spark plugs, replacing the coils, for example, they can all go a long way to improving the efficiency of the engine. Carrying out a service on a newly bought older car is almost an essential prerequisite. So far then, these things are just restoring the lost performance, restoring the lost fuel economy. We can start to improve things. You may have a car that has a carb engine. Most of them were probably injector fed from the 1990s onwards, because this is when we had the catalytic converter fitted. But if you do have a carb engine, think about upgrading to fuel injection, because that goes a long way to dramatically improving fuel efficiency and power and general performance of the car, and can really lift an older car into the modern 2020s era. Giving the engine a tune up, most of these cars still have an ECU, and the knowledge required to upgrade and tune these ECUs is much better now than maybe on some of the very new models that are coming out of the factory. There's even an aftermarket replacement option where you can go and completely replace the ECU with something that is generations better than what was on the original car, just allowing you to fine-tune the fuel delivery, the spark timing, and all the other essential components to keep the engine running as efficiently and to extract as much performance from every drop of fuel that you can. If you've got a turbocharged car, just doing some changes in the ECU will dramatically affect the car's performance. In fact, in most diesels and even petrol cars, you can get 20 to 30% more power just by doing a remap. And again, you can tweak that. You may not want so much power, you might want more fuel economy, and that is certainly deliverable on some of these older engines. Tyre technology and wheel technology and braking technology have also come on leaps and bounds in the last 20 odd years, and it's really worth thinking about upgrading these. getting slightly wider wheels, lighter alloy wheels, getting a modern tread pattern on the tyres. Modern tyre compounds will go a long way to improving the grip and the handling and the performance. But improving the brakes is also a safety aspect. You don't want the old brakes letting you down because you've been relying on them too much, whereas a modern braking system can cope with more heat cycles. It can dissipate the heat more effectively, and generally it provides better stopping power over the long term. Now, there's a massive disclaimer to doing all of this. Firstly, we need to think about the legalities of doing so in our area. Most countries have some kind of legislation limiting the options as to what we can do to our car. The overall aim is to keep the car safe and also to make sure it's still environmentally friendly. So there are some modifications and upgrades that may not be legal in all areas. Check your local area just to see what you can get away with legally and what the options are when it comes to upgrades. And the other component is the insurance. A lot of people have this conception that insurance companies don't mind what we do. We can modify and upgrade our car. We can buy a 100 horsepower car, soup it up to 300 horsepower, and the insurance company won't mind because they're just insuring that registration number. Well, that is a massive myth. Insurance companies will probably invalidate your policy. You'll have all kinds of legal issues as a result of that. Don't take the chance assuming your insurance company are going to be okay with upgrades. The other school of thought is the other extreme, that insurance companies hate modifications and upgrades and they will instantly cancel your policy and you won't be able to get insurance. The reality is certainly in the middle of those. There are specialist insurers out there that love insuring modified cars. Getting a policy for a modified car in some cases can be cheaper than getting insurance for a standard unmodified car, because these companies' statistics show that people that have spent a lot of money upgrading and modifying their car are better drivers and also more careful drivers, and that is reflected with lower premiums. It's just worth shopping around, but you will find you need to go to different insurers to get different rates, and it will depend a lot on what you've done to your car. Just making cosmetic mods will probably be okay with most insurers. Adding a performance air filter again will get away with most insurers because that doesn't do a great deal to performance. But if you remapped it for an extra 20 or 30% more power, a lot of insurers will increase the premium slightly. Again, get quotes and make sure you're getting the best possible deal for your car insurance. But it certainly is possible to have an older car that is as capable on the modern roads as a car that has just rolled out of the factory. You won't have to worry about all of the eco stuff that is fitted to modern cars that is eventually just going to clog up and require an expensive replacement. And you're dealing with engines that are relatively simple to work on, and because they're old, there is a thriving aftermarket of parts availability. I'm going to dedicate some time in my development slots to look at some of these older engines that just make superb projects that you can get a lot more power out of, or just bring up to modern standards relatively cheaply and relatively easily. Let me know if you want to nominate any engines that we should be covering. I want to do some diesel engines and also some petrol engines. We're obviously based in the UK, but I'm very interested in getting a worldwide view. There's a lot of options out there that maybe we don't think about here in the UK, but over there, maybe in the States or in Canada, there's certain models that would just lend themselves really nicely to this mechanical simplicity and easy to upgrade and bring up to modern standard with relatively simple changes that we can make. I hope you found this video useful. Please boot that like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please do so. And I've lined up this video to help you to get the best performance out of your car. And also this playlist you should find really interesting. Thanks for watching. See you in these next videos.